A huge draw-in for the recent Kingdom Hearts title, Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, was its story conclusion. Being a sort of bridge game that will directly lead into the next arc, lots of fans wondered how it would end or how it would continue the story of Sora's disappearance, his whereabouts after Kingdom Hearts 3. As stated in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind's Limit Cut episode, the three keys that would be important would be Riku, Kairi, and a mystery person who we do not yet know. This game's minimal story, if not implied enough by the box art, focuses a fair bit on Kairi post Kingdom Hearts 3, while her heart is being researched for potential hints or answers pertaining to Sora's whereabouts. This is where our story and our journey through Melody of Memory begins. This is also where the spoiler warning begins for those unfortunate few who haven't completed Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory and seen its story's conclusion. I will be referencing many significant points in the story in order to discuss this topic, so again, do not proceed if you wish to keep your Melody of Memory experience as fresh as possible, which if you ask me, I would recommend you do so. Kairi is quite the polarizing topic in the Kingdom Hearts community nowadays. Less so than she was a year ago, though people tend to get into pretty heated discussions over her character, for understandable reasons as well. She's a beloved character who was there in the very first game and set up as one of the main motivations for our main character, Sora. Yet her screen time has never reflected that. She essentially only appears in numbered titles and only for brief instances as well. She has more screen time in Kingdom Hearts 3 than most other Kingdom Hearts games with the inclusion of Remind. However, while every other character in the series has gradually progressed in one way or another, she's been kind of stationary herself. I'm one of the people who enjoyed the direction they went with her in Kingdom Hearts 3, and especially Remind. But despite that, I felt like we were robbed of more Kairi involvement in the base game, and I, along with many others, voiced our concerns and wishes. A common thing the community started wishing for was finally having her playable, preferably in a game of her own, but the ultimate goal of this would be to increase her screen time and overall involvement, which I broke down was her main issue as of Kingdom Hearts 3, and honestly, well before that. Screen time. She needed more of it. My issue with her personally was never that any of her scenes were really bad or unenjoyable, but rather the lack of scenes, cutscenes. Kairi has always been a delight to see on screen, and when Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind was going through its advertisement cycle and we saw this beautiful artwork along with her being playable in a short scene in a trailer, my hopes got very high. We didn't even have to wait until the next Kingdom Hearts game to get more of Kairi. We were finally going to get more of her in the DLC just a year later, which Remind did not disappoint when it came to Kairi for me, because I was in love with her gameplay, and it was easily one of the highlights of the entire DLC package. Even getting added on cutscenes to the initial encounter with Xemnas, Sayax, and Xion did her so many favors. This was the start of something more for Kairi. It was a step in the right direction for her character. Then, months later, after Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind has passed, we get Melody of Memory. This title was a little weird to take in. On one hand, it has the Kairi involvement we all wanted, but it's a rhythm game, and the story is very minimal. Though we can cut this game a little bit of slack for being a surprise release, as no one even thought we'd get more Kingdom Hearts in 2020. Well, let's just see what this game offers for her. Kairi's character development in Melody of Memory isn't substantial, but it's very appreciated, and I'd say leaves her in a flexible and comfortable position for the next saga. We start off the story of this game with flashbacks of Kairi's past, a very short sequence of scenes as Terranort is locking her in the Ark, assumingly sending her to Destiny Islands. He says something that'll set up the mystery for the story scenario. If you arrive in a world that's neither of light nor darkness, but somewhere on the other side, your task will be far from easy. He adds on, if that happens, you must abandon your search. We have failed. After this episode of remembering parts of her past, Kairi regains control of herself in the final world. This segment taking place inside her heart, a hooded man appears, revealing himself to be Master Xehanort. They have a back and forth conversation that I find to be much needed for her character, even if this interaction isn't necessarily real. It holds weight because Kairi has never really interacted with Master Xehanort much, so seeing this gave this cutscene a lot of interest. A quote Kairi says is that if it weren't for everything that you've done, then Sora and everyone would be safe. While she's saying this, it looks like she's kind of shaky, understandably. I mean, this is the man who nearly killed her, though she speaks with determination as well, and says, even if you're just a memory or illusion, I won't let you walk away. Xehanort responds with a brief statement, but Kairi just starts attacking with some pretty neat choreography on Square's end. I mean, I really have to applaud them because they have been handling their fight scenes a lot better in the series, and they tend to be insanely enjoyable to watch. You can tell she's trying really hard here, but despite that, this memory Xehanort doesn't break much of a sweat dodging her moves, but she does force him to pull out his Keyblade after a certain point, which might be impressive for Kairi. During a lot of this, there's little moments of Xehanort saying, "You've become quite the Keyblade wielder," and also how he knows Kairi is doing this in search of Sora. But there's nothing to find here. She keeps on attacking relentlessly despite this, which is a drastic change I like to see from getting grabbed by Xemnas once and then getting shattered to pieces, which is what happened in base Kingdom Hearts 3. Xehanort pushes her back and she struggles to get up, and this is when she gets up with the Kingdom Key and shifts into Sora. This is a moment a lot of people weren't too fond of. I won't say that I like it either, but I don't really feel upset about it. I guess it's like Kairi struggled fighting her own memory version of Xehanort, and it makes sense that the part of Sora that is connected with her, you know, it's Kingdom Hearts, connections, it's kind of a big thing. It makes sense that that part of Sora that is connected with her would want to protect her. Though I know to a lot of people this is them pulling the same stuff of her getting saved by Sora again, and I know. Even though this is a slippery slope of it not actually being Sora and this not actually being Xehanort, it's still something they're visually animating on screen. However, this is significantly better than what has happened before in my opinion. Pre-Remind Kairi would have maybe attempted to attack once, give up, and then get captured, or maybe not even attempt to attack and just be captured. This Kairi, even though Xehanort clearly wasn't taking her all too seriously and was clearly testing her to see if it was worth giving her information he would detail later, attacked Xehanort relentlessly until she basically tired herself out and got countered, and even though Sora gave her a little push here, you can still see her standing up along with them. Though I'm a little more forgiving of this sort of thing as it is. I've never been one to hate the damsel in distress storyline, rather what leads up to it and how it's executed, and this wasn't executed poorly at all, and neither would I really consider this a damsel in distress situation. Yeah, honestly, they should have given Kairi a rhythm game boss battle against Xehanort, but I don't see this as the last time Kairi would get this opportunity. In fact, I feel the opposite. Of course, Memory Xehanort is defeated, and he then gives Kairi the answer she seeks. The lines we heard Terranort say earlier, "If you arrive in a world that's neither of light nor darkness, but somewhere on the other side, your task will be far from easy." This is when Kairi wakes up. This was the bulk of Kairi's involvement in this story, but we're not done quite yet. She relays the info she got from her memories to Ienzo, Ansem, and Evan, and they are perplexed and don't know what to make of this phrase from Xehanort. Other than this would be a fictional world. This must be a fictional world. This is when Riku walks in, sees Kairi awake, and says he found some info about Sora. This directly ties into the Remind cutscene with him and Fairy Godmother discussing the 3 keys. Speaking of Fairy Godmother, she finds her way into this cutscene somehow, introduces herself, and then the 3 science boys explain the situation and everything they know and have understood. This is when Fairy Godmother steps in and introduces the 3rd key to saving Sora. She takes Kairi and Riku, the other 2 keys, to the final world, introduces them to the 3rd key, the Nameless Star. This is the same Nameless Star Sora interacted with in his trip to the final world during the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, and the person he mentions when talking to Yozora in the secret ending to Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. Fairy Godmother explains how she is from the other side. After a conversation, Fairy Godmother says she can be used as a portal to that world, using the power of waking. Riku, being the only one here who has the power of waking, opens the portal, and Kairi says, "I'm going too." Riku gives her a look, and before he even gets going, Kairi knows the answer. She describes how she wants to go, but knows she can't. She needs to finish training. She needs to become stronger. And when she is, she'll be right next to him and Sora. Those were her words. This was disappointing to hear, of course. We all so badly wanted Kairi to go through that portal and be there in Veramrex with Riku, fighting Yozora potentially, just doing whatever, you know, being in the thick of things. But it looks like this will be a Riku solo journey, as we kind of expected based off the secret ending. This doesn't mean Kairi will be out of the action though. In a post-credit cutscene, after Kairi tells Yen Sid and the others about everything that transpired, and after Yen Sid lays down a groundwork for what everyone should do currently, Kairi requests that she trains with Master Aqua, which made me smile from ear to ear because we have been fantasizing about that line, about this interaction potentially happening since seeing Kairi in Birth by Sleep. Kairi being a disciple of Aqua, that is going to be so good. I cannot wait. It just made me beyond happy. The reason it makes me so happy is not just because I get to see Aqua and Kairi bond and do their thing, but because you know dang well that Aqua is going to be playable in the future because Square Enix and Nomura love Aqua. I mean, Terra and Ventus didn't get a secret ending in Birth by Sleep. Terra and Ventus didn't get a 0.2 Birth by Sleep fragmentary passage. Who did? Aqua. Terra and Ventus weren't playable in Kingdom Hearts 3 by themselves. Who was? Aqua. Also, Aqua's just one of the most popular characters in Kingdom Hearts. Easy like top 5 among Sora, Riku, Roxas. If Aqua is as involved in the next arc as she was in the last one, or even the Birth by Sleep trio in general has as much relevance as they did in the last one, then a lot of that will likely translate to Kairi. Square, in my eyes, doesn't have the audacity to treat Aqua the way they ever did Kairi because she's just too popular. She would sell units by herself. So you know that she's going to be given some major role, or will be right in the action in some way, shape, or form. And if Kairi is right next to her, then man, as much as I would have loved a Kairi game, a Kairi Riku and Veramrex game, a Kairi and Aqua game, that is fine by me. Now, to calm myself down a little bit, let's actually take all that in and discuss if Kairi's character moved forward after Melody of Memory or not. Is she better after this game than she was before? Is this peak Kairi? Well, honestly, I might say yes. Now, peak Kairi might be when we played as her, along with Sora in that boss against Xehanort and Remind, but this is pretty darn close to that as far as story scenes go. A direction with this Kairi that I'm loving so far is her level of awareness. That's a trait that a lot of Kingdom Hearts characters surprisingly don't have. In a series as convoluted as this one, a lot of characters just jump headfirst into things. Kairi acknowledging her lack of strength and need to train shows a sense of resolve in her character, her recognizing the severity of the situation at hand and how it's important not to just rush into things like King Mickey was literally about to do, and he's a master by the way, puts her mental fortitude above other characters. Kairi doesn't need to be some screw-it-all female protag that just ignores what she's told all the time and is just broken just because. To be fair though, I don't know who taught her that little warp strike technique and that shot lock, but she might be on her way to being broken in the future. But the important thing is that we progress to that point. Kairi should progress naturally and not be rushed into progression just because they've barely moved the needle the past 20 years. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be different if the Kingdom Hearts series was ending with the next installment, but it hasn't shown signs of doing so, not even close. So we have lots of time. It's assumed we'll have quite a few more games, even after Kingdom Hearts 3, so let this be a chance for Kairi to get the development she needs. She doesn't need to be in every boss battle or major story plot, but just doing more instead of more of the same. We're already off to a pretty good start though. I have a feeling this will be just the beginning for Kairi and her adventure moving forward.